SuperCoach video with me, JD. You are joining me for the round 19 review. We are getting ever so closer to the end. I scored a 25.97 for the week, which dropped me one rank spot to 154. Based on SuperCoach data, it looked like I was going to move up about 30-40 spots this week, but that last game, which saw Steele, Sheasel, and Steele and Sheasel in particular score really highly. LDU did as well, but that pushed me back. And then not having Sicily, who went 170, also hurt this week. But that's okay. At least I avoided any additional carnage this week with Ridley going down, Walsh going down. And interestingly, we heard after the Saints game that Marshall actually played through an injury, was in some doubt of even getting up for the game. So definitely avoided that as well, which is nice. For the vice captain on the week gone, I went English 134, locked that in, which was a nice score. But there are obviously a few other good ones floating around, especially anyone that took Sicily. I know there were a few of those, so well played. We had Dunkley return with a 115, which was good. We had Cameron return with a 135, which was also good. Kind of got rewarded for holding there. I know many would have traded that were in better spots than I was, and that's just unfortunate that it panned out that way. So in terms of just quickly talking through some of the players in defence, not really too much to complain about here. Obviously, Dacos copped some attention, but still nearly tonned up. Stewart, Dawson, Doherty, and Sinclair were all great. Dawson started off a little bit slow, but was good towards the end of that game. And then Will Day, 90. It's at the lower end, and obviously, it's 80 points down on Sicily, but that's okay. And we just want Melican or Constable to play at some point, so we've got a little bit of cover. In the mids, Essendon, so disappointing. So merit score was just okay considering. Bont was continued to be great. He's a vice captain, a captain option every week, and I actually think he's one that we'll talk about this week as the vice captain option against GWS. Petrarca continues to be really good despite playing more forward, which is great, and now he's into a softer period of his fixture with Richmond this week, North in the next two, so should hopefully get some points there. Neil was okay. The big news, obviously, in this game, apart from Dunkley returning, was Ashcroft doing his ACL. Not too many teams around the top still have Ashcroft, so fortunate in that regard, but it's just sad to see a rookie go down with an ACL for the year. If you do have him, he's obviously made a heap of money, but I think this is probably positive for both Dunkley and Neil because Ashcroft had been really quite a prolific scorer over the last or however long since the bye. And in particular, he was hitting a lot of those short hit-up kicks on like the 45 or even coming out of defence that Neil would have taken previously. So I think that is good for Neil's scoring going forward. Laird had the swollen AC joint, so it was actually kind of surprising they ruled him out early rather than it being laid out. But I have a feeling that that's something that they can get under control and play him this week. Hopefully he gets up for that because they need him, and especially against Port, it's a big game at home. And then Brayshaw was good. I think Sarong was somewhat disappointing in this game, but I thought he'd be better off return. And then the ones that I didn't have, like Steele went massive. He had a 160, looked really good to be honest. Another soft matchup this week in the Hawks as well. The North Hawks duo was like the best part of his fixture, so that's great. So if you had Steele, you were very happy, repaid the faith. And then Davies Uniacke was one of the cheaper options we talked about as well last week, and he looked really good. Had something like 20 plus contested possessions over 10 clearances as well. Scored a 133 and now has West Coast this week. He's now got like basically 3 130s in a row here over the last 3 weeks. So he's been massive and should go big against West Coast. I don't see any reason why he wouldn't. So got a couple of forwards here in Butters and Cogs. So Cogs had a positive ratio for once. We take those. And then Butters was good to see him actually get up and play despite obviously the problems that he's had with his shoulder. Some concerns here with how fit he actually is and all that going forward. But hopefully it's the type of injury that'll get better. And given he was able to play out the game fine. He did seem to fade a little bit in the fourth, and obviously there was scaling and stuff on the line in that game. But yeah, I think, happy to hold him for now. Forwards, Dunkley started off slow but worked into the game, especially in the second half when it was on the line. He played really well, and so hopefully that bodes well for the back end of the year. Goulden had a down week, but not too worried about that. Plays the Dons this week, which I think should be all right for scoring. Rosie was good. Taranto continues kind of like this lackluster form, although he kicked 3 goals and only ended up with a 91, including like goals that brought them back into that game. So to be honest, a bit stiff, but and then Mini Helmet, I mean, yeah, second poor score in a row after bringing him in. I think his DT was all right. He just butchered a fair bit of it early, which hurts. Dogs have a nice fixture on the run home: GWS, Richmond, Hawks, West Coast. So those next 4, hopefully he'll repay the faith. And then, yeah, DC, good to have him back and also score large, because if Marshall is out this week, then, can bring in Cameron to cover. So I guess like quickly for those that have Ridley and are looking to trade, we should probably just talk through what the options are. What's he priced at now? Because he was on for a massive game, 138, and he sat out most of this. We set out, I think, all the 4th and then some of the 3rd as well. Did a quad. It sounds like it's going to be a 3 to 4 week injury, 513k. So just looking at defenders up here, like obviously if you can get to a Sicily, do it, but I just don't think most people have 120, 30k lying around at this point. The pod options are also expensive in Ryan and Houston, who continue to be good. Like these 3-round averages are insane: 127, 127, 127 for Stewart, 123, 123, 123. Wow. Sam Taylor, 123. That's crazy. So if you can't go him, who do you go? I mean, Daniel is around the same price now, and despite him being poor the last 2 weeks, that nice fixture I pointed out is one you could look at. Sheasel's been very good without Hall down back, so cheaper again. You could go look at him as an option without Hall and without Zeeble. So definitely one you could consider as an option. Otherwise, if you're going left field, I guess it could be Redmond. Scores better in wins and losses, and with no Ridley, you'd expect him to take over more of the duties when it comes to exiting defence. With West Coast and North games coming up, I think those could potentially be nice. And even the Swans one might not be too bad. Those are probably about it. Those are the ones I'd look at. Oh, if you don't have Doherty, I think Doherty's probably still a good choice too. I mean, playing midfield without any of their other midfielders leads to good scores, especially against West Coast. The rest of this fixture isn't particularly great, so I could see why you might avoid him. But yeah, I think you could throw him into the mix too. For those with Walsh, that's probably a little bit of a trickier situation. Who did his hamstring, and we'll see how long exactly that is, but it looks like it's 3+ weeks, and given we've got 6 games left now, 5 games left. This is someone that you just trade out from here. He's just missing too much of the remaining time. So he's priced at 535k. Let's just have a look at the mids. So we can look at average and all that jazz, but like, how about we just look at the 3-rounders? So Steele, LDU, I think both of these are good inform options if you want to look at either of those. LDU should return nicely this week with the West Coast matchup. Both have concerns over their bodies, which is obviously the issue over the back end of the year, especially in SuperCoach, where you may be out of trades, but I think those are the ones you probably could look at. Otherwise, if you just pick average, I think most of the guys in here look all right. Oh, the one that, you could even go like Parrish as a point of difference. Sarong, I still think is good at his price, despite having just the ton. And like any of those would be fine. And then I guess the only other thing would be if you do have trades and Marshall misses or looks like he will miss, then Marshall to Gone seems like a good trade. I wonder if it'll cost you money now. Wow. Gone's now 610k, so he's gone, 40k past Marshall, but Gone has what did he score? 120, another good score from him. So 215 and 120. Yep, that's nice. So he's got the Soldo matchup and then the Cherry matchup in the next couple. So those are very nice for Gone. Should continue to go big. So even if just Tom Campbell's named in the side, with the news that Marshall is potentially carrying something, we'll see what happens throughout the week. But yeah, Marshall to Gone could be on the cards. The annoying thing about that this week is Cameron plays the first game. So even though we've got Cameron for cover here, he's going to be locked out before we find out if Marshall's are laid out, for example, which is really annoying. If Marshall's are laid out, would I trade him to Gone and use my last cover? Probably depends on who else is named. I'm still hoping Roberts comes back at some point. Maybe Davey comes back at some point, and then I need Melican to come back after his injury. Yeah, because I don't want Fletcher playing for Laird each week. Fletcher's been on my field like every week, and despite him being good, that's not great. All right. And then the other option that's worth talking about is just quickly is Flanders. If you're looking for a cheaper forward, he's not that cheap anymore. 467k. Put up a 113. This is now what 5 games that we've got a decent sample size, a 110 average here, which would actually put him up in the top 6 forwards. Really, this is great scoring. He led CBAs for Gold Coast mids this week. He had more than Took, had more than Anderson, had more than Rao. Really flourishing under the new coach. So he is absolutely someone that you could look at as an option. Brisbane, obviously, a tougher matchup this week. But yeah, if you're looking for a cheap forward to get to 467k, I think Flanders is the one to look at. Even if you had to get off like Walsh for a cheaper option, you could put him in the midfield if you wanted to open up some DPP. Don't mind that. But if you could get to someone like LD or Steele, I think I'd still prefer that as an option. Now, quickly to finish out this week, be vice captain. So I think Bont is the one that, like Bont or English, basically just have to be your vice captain, I think, every week. 128 average on both of them. But I like Bont this week against GWS. So what, they don't have Tom Green. Bont went 164 on them earlier in the year. And while English probably went all right as well, 124, they have Briggs now. And Briggs should beat him up and can kind of match him in aspects around the ground, should beat him in the hit outs too. So while I don't think English will be awful by any means, I really like Bont as an option. I think it's harder to look at captains from there. So maybe if you had Steele, you could look at him versus the Hawks. And while Steele's been good, I don't know if I could trust him as a captain. Petrarca, I feel like he's still hard to trust just because of the role. It feels like it leads to inconsistency. So I'm not sure I could trust him against the Tigers. LDU, if you had him against West Coast, I guess you could go there, but it's just, yeah, newer guy, less confidence in him, but maybe you could look there. Adelaide, Port, look, it could be Dawson. What's his track record like against Port? It's okay. I probably wouldn't touch Butters just given the injury concerns, but I could see people maybe going Rosie, but he's been inconsistent at times as well. So maybe neither of those. And I wouldn't go Laird coming back off injury. Essendon, Swans, like maybe you could look at someone like a Merritt. I think his history against the Swans is actually okay, despite us. He had a 57. Was that injured or tagged? I can't remember. He might get tagged. Yeah, this might not be a good matchup. Then that takes us to Gold Coast, Brisbane. Yeah, maybe you could go Neil here. He's got this is good history against them. 128 this year, 123 before that. Is it at the Gabba? It's in Queensland, but it's not at the Gabba. Okay. If it was at the Gabba, I think Neil C could be on the cards here. Yeah, we're taking Bont for this matchup. And then so would I do Bont C and then someone else vice? I mean, it could be Doherty. I know he's got decent track record against Collingwood, right? Yeah, 135, 138 last two, 107 before that. So that's all in the last couple of years. Playing as a mid against them, he could score pretty reasonably. I mean, it could be Dacos actually against the Blues. I know Blues are restricted for mids, but I don't think they'll tag him. So maybe it's VC Dacos into C Bont. Then the only other option is like this Geelong Freo game. Maybe if you wanted to like VC Ryan in that game, he could go big. I don't know what Stewart's history is against them. He had a 187 last year. So maybe you could vice captain Stewart as well as one of those guys, but it's a bit riskier. Oh, the only other thing is if you've got Sicily, then I think you could vice Bontempelli into C Sicily. Sicily should be an amazing option against Saints, who give up massive scores to defenders. It's a really obvious one, which of course I don't have him, so it's not obvious to me. But yeah, the Sicily's fixture is blessed, so you could absolutely go there. And to be honest, if I had like an injury to one of my mids, Sicily's probably the player I would bring in at the moment over almost any other mid, I think, and just open up another DPP. So yeah, that's the team update this week. Obviously, not a lot happening. A few injuries, which we thankfully avoided. Marshall's one we've got to keep an eye on throughout the week, as well as what happens with Laird, and probably a little bit of a soft watch on Butters just to see how he pulls up from that game. But given that they said he was okay and he played through, he's probably fine. If you have any questions for your team trades, etc., hit me up below. If you see any better vice captain captains, then let me know. Otherwise, as always, I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Peace.